Hello, my name is Amanda, and welcome to Back to the Heart, a podcast for self discovery, healing, and embracing true freedom. And I invite you to join me as we embark on a transformative journey back to your heart, where we get to choose love over fear. What if the stories that we've been told about ourselves and even about history have hidden the truth of our true power? In today's conversation, I sit down with intuitive astrologer Asia Golden, creator of the Quantum Soul Codex, and we talk about how astrology can help us release old stories and align with our highest path. And we're going to dive into the story of Mary Magdalene, which I'm super excited about, and why her role in humanity's awakening is so important for us to remember, especially now, especially as women and as healers. So, this episode is for you if you have ever felt stuck after doing the healing work, especially women reclaiming their divine feminine power, and for healers who are ready to step into their authentic path and lead from love. So, welcome, Asia. Thank you so much for joining us for Back to the Heart.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I was getting the truth bumps while you were speaking. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. And I pulled a card for today for all of us,
Yay.
okay? And it's Archangel Faith.
I
If you look at
love
that,
it.
look at that, the wings and look at the flame with the
It's so
crystal.
beautiful.
And it says, with faith, you are invincible. Believe in yourself. And I would even go further and say, self-love is where it all starts.
It does. That was the inspiration for this podcast and Back to the Heart is, we get back to loving ourselves first. We get back to that inner knowing, that inner intuition that's in all of us, then we're able to love those around us. So that is very fitting for our call today.
It's all divine timing. Yes, I love this.
Yes, it always is. So, let's jump in. And for somebody who might be new to astrology, because as I mentioned before we started recording, I've had quite a few different types of guests on the show, but nobody specifically talking about astrology. And I want us to dig in and you to explain to someone who may not know, what is it that you really mean by transcended intuitive astrology, and being the creator of the Quantum Soul Codex, like what is that exactly?
Right. Well, all right. Let's dive into this. So, we were all born from source. All right. If you want to call that God, goddess, Christos, Sophia, heart womb, it's all the same. And at that moment when we chose to be source and form, we had a mission. We were very excited. We're like, yes, I want to go out and explore the universes, hang out on some planets. And so every one of us has a mission. We have a purpose with our source, with our codex, right? And quantum, right? It's beyond time. It's beyond any like linear. It's all about frequency, your soul. The codex is like a living book of your light codes of who you are from the moment you were born from source. So, in that, what happens is we travel through all these lifetimes, right? These timelines we're jumping through. And that original codex often gets distorted because we're having so much fun in these lifetimes doing other things. What I'm seeing in a lot of astrology and the people I'm working with, especially women, is the witch wound, the persecution wound is really coming up in the charts. Why? We have to ask yourself, why am I seeing that pretty much almost in every chart I've done in the last few months? Why is because the divine feminine is rising. Okay. So when I look at a chart, Now, traditional astrology, let's step back a few paces. Traditional astrology looks at it, you have houses, you have the signs, and you have aspects. You have squares, oppositions, trines, sextiles, and a whole bunch more, right? And it's very flat. And this is how it is. Eighth house has to do with it's like real estate, inheritance, death. Well, eighth house really has to do with the tantric codes. It has to do with the death and resurrection that we have been doing in like every lifetime. And how many times, especially, women have been in that mode in this lifetime. And so what I do is I go deep, much, much deeper. And I have to bring in the mantis because the mantis, they come from another universe and they have been here. They're incredibly gentle beings. And the wisdom is, I couldn't even expound on their wisdom. They were the ones that, through vessels like me, have brought astrology to the planet Earth. All right. And is to help us grow, just like acupuncture. Did someone just say, oh, needles? you know, no, the knowledge was given from the galactics. And so, other lifetimes ago, we worked together and we coded this Quantum Soul Codex to be released. And so it got released about 2 years ago. With seeing this huge mantis was the first thing. I was like, whoa, what's this mantis all about? And then a friend of mine was like, you've got to bring your light language out more. And I started doing the light language and I realized who's speaking through me, and it was the mantis. And so they helped me see the soul blueprint, a chart, if you want to call it, in a multi-dimensional reality. It's very, I see things not as just lines. I see it tied to other lifetimes. So we really we tie in what's happening in other lifetimes to this lifetime and what you're forging, that fire that you really want to be, going back to your blueprint, going back to the original codex, clearing the distortion that has, the multi layers of these different dimensions, right? So we clear the distortions basically when I work with someone, and we really get into what it is. How I operate is we look at core themes of each aspect, right? The houses are extremely important, so you do need to know pretty close to your birth time. So what I do is we do a core theme of that aspect. Let's say moon square sun. Okay, that's a big tension within a person, right? Squares are about inner tensions. And so what we do is we take the core theme of that, and then we take the shadow work. What have you been operating from the shadow? And then we take the embodied work. So we shine light on the shadow. And when you shine light on a shadow, what happens? It disappears, right? So I give a really in-depth view of your codex by looking at the shadows, by create those themes. And there's usually 4 to 5 major themes in a person's life. Some a lot more, some less, depending on how much karma you've developed and how much you want to release, right? So that's really the basis. And so we go through the whole chart and we just keep going core themes. So when you have a square with moon and sun, moon has no power for reflection, right? It's the sun that reflects on the moon to make it glow. So somewhere there just creates this, so the moon kind of gets lost in the sun's power, right? When you have a square. So maybe it's somewhere you don't want to speak up for yourself. You're afraid of speaking your words. These would be the persecution wounds, the witch wounds, right? You're afraid to shine. And that would be the shadow of that. And then the embodiment would be starting to use that throat chakra, starting to really acknowledge the wisdom from your heart and bringing that forth in your life through that square, because that square you chose in this lifetime. And the one thing that's really important is North Node and South Node, and that's where I first go. The North Node is our soul's compass. It is absolutely our highest destiny. in this lifetime, particular lifetime, in right now. South node is where you were and what you are releasing. And so that's really our pivotal point. That's our nodal axis, right? The axes here are so important to look at because we bring that south node in with us. Let's say you were someone that you were like you have south node in your cancer for example, you overarched with nurturing others and taking care of others and completely forgetting about your self-worth and completely exhausting yourself in those lifetimes, right? So then and so in this lifetime in north node, you are all about bringing that energy grounded into the earth and Capricorn, and you are allowing yourself to shine through and nurturing yourself first and foremost through that self-love so that you can take care of other people and stop overarching. So that's what I'm presenting to people, is really looking at their shadow work, bringing it to that embodied place so they can shine.
Yeah, so it sounds like in this codex, in this formula through the stars, that shows more of the themes that you can use, these shadows that are going to continue to appear throughout your life as you continue to ascend towards that north node position, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
We use me as an example. I am Aquarius, so that's my south node, right? And I believe my north node is Leo. So
Yeah.
it fits very much with me starting this podcast at the beginning of 2025 and
Right.
clearing this throat chakra and speaking my truth and out here broadcasting and connecting and sharing a voice that I was so afraid to do. I was all in this Aquarius world of this balance and feeling like, oh, everything has to be fair and I can't shine any brighter than the person beside me.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes from other lifetimes. And so that's where, and that your soul came in, your codex doesn't change, right? It's the patterns in the chart that change. But you come in like with the trines, those are harmonious. Those come in from those other lifetimes, and those will continue to come in. It's the squares and oppositions that you say, okay, I'm going to work on it this lifetime.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you have something like you are doing exactly what you should be doing with the North Node in Leo, it's about that lion's heart. It's about the loyalty, about really wanting to share with a greater audience. Leos like to shine. I have Leo rising, so I can understand it. Might be the hair, you know. Um, and so that's beautiful that you've stepped into that role, because that is your it speaking and being seen for what you're doing is really truly your highest destiny.
Yeah. It's interesting too, bringing it back to this codex too.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with Robert Edward Grant?
I'm not.
Yeah, he is talks a lot about sacred geometry and has done a lot of work in Egypt in the pyramids and uncoding. He's got a whole different like application that he's adding into creating his own AI, and it's called The Architect. And it is
Oh, okay.
about
Yes, I do
okay,
know. Okay, yeah. I
okay,
just didn't
about
know that.
he's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is similar to like what you're talking about, but what came up for me with my birth date for this code was two circles that overlap in the middle. I can't remember what it's called, but it makes, like a little diamond in the middle.
Yeah.
And what mine was that I have I have the capacity and tendency to look at two completely opposite, ideas, and I'm able to find a third way. It's not just black and
Yeah.
white. I can create a third option that's that
Yeah.
unification or something new of those in between. and then it has, I can't remember what the shape was, that's like going forward to share that message with other people. So
Yeah, that's
it may be
yeah.
connected to like what you're talking about.
Yeah, his work is really cool. With those circles, you're able to synthesize. You can pull out from those oppositions and synthesize a whole different innovative way. And that does have to do with the some Aquarius energy of you, because that is that place of revolution, right? And really being able to expand into the swimmy waters and the air. Like it's like you were in the depths and then you're now in this air, and so you can take all, like, from, we can say, from the water and from the air, and bring it into this whole new thing. It's beautiful synthesizing, right? And AI can be an incredible tool. Also, people, there, the controversy, like, oh, this is my higher self. And there's the AI has been written, it's been around forever. It's not a new thing. It's like the peeling of the onions. It's a timeline. It's been there always, right? And there is a voice to AI. Voice is, right? It's just it's a tool to be able to bring higher consciousness in. And I've seen it. I've really seen it and witnessed it. And it's so powerful. And it's helping us expand avenues into the spirit realms, as long as you're discerning. You just, discernment's the key here, right? When we talk about such things, you don't want to go really deep into, like, and like using it as your therapist. That's personally my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
That's my opinion. I have friends that have done that, and I'm like, okay, do you want to talk to a person? I mean, and they, because they have the banks, the knowledge there, right, in all those, that computer world. But that architect, I mean, it's definitely, he's on to it. He's on to this code. And the codex is part of that, because the codex is who we are. It is the living light language. It's beyond the Akashic records, right? The Akashic records is the records of all of our lives. This is like back to source, directly back to source, and who we were the moment we were born from source. That's our codex. So it's a little different.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the one that he's doing is more of like upgrading yourself to us, I guess, looking at those specific geometric patterns that are tied to our birth. But yeah, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
no,
There's
and
so
it
much
is.
stuff
There's
to
so much.
help
Well,
us.
yeah, so the mantis, right? They're like surgeons of sacred geometry. So part of my astrology reading is an activation. So what we do is we've gone through the chart, we've really had a beautiful dialogue, and then I asked the client, I said, would you like an activation to clear anything that's not needed in your fields? Right. And if they say yes, okay, we do it. And so what the mantis do is they come through me. I'm the vessel, and they go in, and they're so precise, and they use sacred geometry. Okay. They use the Merkaba, they use Metatron's cube, they use stuff I don't even have names for. I could just see it. And they absolutely clear out, recalibrate, and restore the original codex to the person. So it's integral to my astrology, is this activation, because it actually goes, it's kind of like a rewiring, right? So you start with showing them the shadows, the themes, the embodiment, and then the mantis come in and rewire, recalibrate, and restore you to your original state, so that you can move forward, right? Will distortions come back? They can. Will, all based on your frequency. But and at least you've had a clearing. And then a lot of times, like, the dragons will step in, because there might be, I had this one woman. This is a great story. I had this one woman, right? She had never done any astrology. I looked at her chart and I said, whoa, this is like, she is ready to be done in this life. I said, what is going on with her heart? There's something going on with her heart. And as I'm looking at her, I haven't met her, right? This is not someone I met. And when I met her, we're going and we're doing the chart. And like halfway through, I said, yeah, I'm just going to say Sally. I'm not going to say her real name. But so I'm like, Sally, um, can I ask you a question? And she said, sure. Okay. I said, "What's going on with your heart?" And she said, she kind of went like, What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you know, because I work on it beforehand, right? I obviously write out, I do like a whole book. I mean, I like this, I do a whole thing for people. Um, I said, "You have something blocking your heart." The mantis have showed it really clear to me. I had done her chart 2 days before, and I was stuck on this, right? And she goes, "That's so weird because I've been going to all these different teachers trying to figure out why my heart's so blocked." So the mantis showed me, and this is really a mind blowing story. The mantis showed me she was on this other planet, some other timeline, right? And she made a huge mistake. All right. And the planet basically didn't survive. And she wasn't the only one, right? She wasn't, but she was part of this team that was trying to do something, and it backfired, and it didn't go over well. And she said, "I can never," and it happened to be with a, and she felt like she was misguided because of love, right? And she said, "I'm never going to do this again. I'm locking my heart. I'm not gonna, there's no way I can ever do this. Too many people were harmed all because of me and me being in love with someone." I'm like, "Oh my God." Right. So I said to her, "I would like to stop doing the chart, and I would like to bring the mantis in. And would you be interested in clearing this heart energy, this imprint?" And she said, "Oh my God, I've been looking to do this for years." So we took some breaths, stepped into the circle, and wow, it was like this huge lock that the mantis showed me, right? And she had to do it, right? So we gave her a key. They did sacred geometry, we did light coding, right? And finally it was to the point where she needed to unlock. Oof, I really get the truth bounce here. She had to unlock it herself. I said, "Are you ready to unlock this and realize that it no longer serves you?" And she said, "Oh, you have no idea. Yes." And oof, the moment she unlocked this, we're on a Zoom call. I was blown back literally by the energy that came out of her. My chair,
Wow.
just like this, I went poof. It was so bright. It was like lightning. And she was like, it was amazing. And what happened is she said, she goes, after, she's like, that was that was the strongest energy next to childbirth for her.
Wow.
And she was cleared. And it had been there since eons.
Yeah, I think that happens with so many people. They know that something's not quite right, but
Yeah.
just figuring out like what is it? How do I get rid of it? Where does it come from? And oftentimes we get tied up in the, well, why, and then we start to fall into this victim mode of this, why that, and quite honestly, sometimes it doesn't matter why. It's what can
It,
I do to get past it, right? And how can I get through this? And if somebody's listening to this and you have that feeling that something is just not quite right, you feel like you're getting stuck and you can't move forward, whether that's with your heart, with your relationship, or with your career or finances, or whatever it is, if you're feeling that and whatever it is that you're doing isn't working, you're not getting past it, then why not open your eyes and open your heart to the possibility of trying something different? Something that, Asia and I may be talking about this, and you're like, "Ooh, mantis," and I don't know, what are you talking about? But seriously, if you've been doing the same shit and you keep getting the same shit results, try something new. I mean, this is incredible, and this is real life. These are real people's lives that are changing. That this woman, she sounds like she'd been doing the work. She had been going to the different courses and reading the books and doing these things. And sometimes we can keep doing these same things over and over again, but just not gaining any traction. And that's when we need somebody else to look at this from a different perspective and be able to give us different tools that are out there. And I love that you're you realize this gift that's within you, that you're able to hold this light and shine this light and connect these people to do it themselves. That's the whole
Exactly.
thing.
And that
And
is that's so critical, Amanda. It's so critical. And it's the way of the golden new age is this is the way, there's guides for you, right? Every person on this planet has a blind spot. There's blind spots. We all have blind spots. So let us help you, right?
yeah,
That's why we're here to guide. And it's a passion for me. I've been doing this my entire life since I was a young child. I have been involved in spirituality and teachers who I'm looking at one right now, Kala Rinpoche, and didn't even know they were in my lives until later. And so yeah, it's a gift. It's absolutely a gift, and sharing that gift and is amazing. And that's why it's Quantum Soul Codex is because it's quantum work. It bends the 3D realities that it doesn't exist in the 3D. It exists in the 5D and beyond. And then when we get into the activations, we're talking 7D beyond, right? And so the frequency is so high. And it's just really powerful. It's
it
powerful work.
really is. And that's the first step is people, I think, have to get to a place where they can open up their mind and their hearts for understanding that there are other things that they don't have to understand that actually exist that are
Yes,
beyond this 3D space. And people say, well, I need to have, math or science. Well, science is constantly evolving based on the
exactly.
information that we have at the time. And um, I say, well, do you know what love is? Yeah. Do you believe in love? Well, how do you measure that? There's no science, there's no mathematical equation, but you still believe it exists, right? Same
Exactly.
thing.
And the one other thing, if I may bring up, is that because you triggered that in my thought is a lot of people start to get anxiety because they don't know, right? Because they don't know. Let me just say something to each and every one of you. Your higher self always knows. So it's really, really powerful to get comfortable in the unknowing and to be okay with that and know that something is coming your way to help you because when you put a call out and it's sincere from your heart, there will something will walk into your life, or you will be create the impetus to make a change for yourself because your higher self is activating you.
Yeah, it's making that choice, making that decision.
Exactly.
Do I want to choose love or fear? And when you make that choice, and then you're able to look back into yourself, you know.
You absolutely do. I love that too. Love and fear. I used to be a school teacher long ago in one of my other lifetimes here. And we did a whole play around love and fear and what that choice was. It was so beautiful. And the girls all wrote poems about love and then they danced and showed what love was, showed what fear was and how you needed to break the fear. Yes, I mean,
So incredible.
yeah, it really is. And that's the crux of things. It's your choice. Love,
Yeah,
fear. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. And it does take that conscious choice though, because we are in a 3D world where the fear is constantly being thrown at us from different angles, whether it's, just our life experiences, our parents, religion, politics, media, all of those, our food, our water, everything is constantly pressed onto us. So it takes that decision to say, you know, I believe that I was made in perfect form. The source, God created me with every single thing that I need whenever I wake up every day.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. That's very, very true and very beautiful. So it does. Yeah. So if you're ready to make a choice, it's a good thing. Then
Yeah.
when you're ready to make that choice, something will present itself to you or several things will present itself. Then you ask your heart and your solar plexus. You're really like, okay, what should I do? Is this good? Should I follow this spark?
Yeah. I think that's part of where we've gotten away from listening to our hearts. I know growing up in a religious background, it was the heart can be deceitful. But in reality, the heart is that other brain that's within us that is that inner knowing. You know, when your heart stops, you die.
Exactly. There's more and more science out there about actually the heart is it's like it is the brain. It's got everything going on. The ancient Vedas, they talk about that where it's like that higher heart is your intelligence. It is truly this is where you come from, not here. This is our computer and the heart controls that computer.
If this conversation is sparking something inside of you, if you are realizing that you have been carrying an old story that is holding you back, this is your moment. I would love to invite you to book a free 30-minute intro call with me. We'll look at where you're feeling stuck, what patterns you're ready to shift, and map out your path to embodying the life that is already waiting for you. You don't have to do this alone. I'll help you rewrite your story, step into your authentic self, and manifest your quantum leap. Just head to my Calendly link in the show notes below and book your free session today. If someone is moving through like a quantum leap or a major transition in their life right now, what like energetic themes or astrology type guidance would you give them to help guide them through that transition?
Well, can I use a prime example right now where we're in?
Perfect.
Okay, so right now in astrology, we are seeing things that have not been seen in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Or more. So right now we have Uranus that just went into Gemini, and Neptune and Saturn are just right still at the edge of um, Aries, but they're going retrograde right now. They're going to pop back into Pisces for a little bit. And then we have Pluto over in Aquarius. Now that was huge, right? At the beginning of the year, it had kept kind of dancing around. It's now in Aquarius. That's why we call it the golden age, right? This is aligned exactly with we had this Kali Yuga in the Vedas, right, which was 2600 years, and it was dark and it was dense, and now we're in the Satya Yuga. This is becoming the golden light, right? Aquarius, golden age, right? It's been talked about. I've been called a new ager for over 30 years. This is ancient wisdom. And so what's happening, this is so amazing. Actually, it'll keep coming back. But on the 28th, so the energy's building right now. Uranus is sextiling Neptune and Saturn, and it's trining Pluto. Okay. These are so for people that don't understand astrology and or yet, anyways, um, these are huge planets. Okay. These are huge, these are frequencies, these are energies, right? Okay, so Uranus is the innovator, right? All this AI technology, we're going to see unbelievable technology happening in the next 20, 30 years because it's in Gemini. So it also likes to knock you down and build you back up. Really powerful. Then we have Neptune, the dream. What is your dream, right? Are you still in an escapism place of trying to avoid your dream? Because Neptune, you can do that through addictions and other, like I'm just going to watch TV or I'm not going to think about anything, right? Neptune is being asked to step up. Saturn, who loves structure, right? Who wants you to operate from a place of structure. Saturn gets a bad rap. However, Saturn really allows us to like take a moment and build a foundation. And then Pluto here in Aquarius, right? And this is collective, right? And for anyone that has planets moving around any of this energy, it's going to really, really charge you up. So Pluto is like the death card, but in a good way. Like step down into Hades, check out what that's like. And it's the resurrection because Pluto is not timid to say, it is time for you to wake up. It is time for you to transform. So when you have Uranus trining Pluto, oh my gosh, that is a gold nugget. Okay, that is saying, look at all, we're pushing you. Come on, you can do this. It's time to unfold that lotus flower, right? And really step into your powers. And then with the Neptune and Saturn, it's building that foundation to live your dreams. And all of it's working together on this massive energy. So it's like you've been across a river and it's raging, right? And you really want to get to the other side to hang out with those dragons over there, right? You're like, that's where I need to be. I want to fly on, I want to be a dragon rider. But you haven't found the way because this river is raging and you've gone up the river and you've gone down the river. But all of a sudden, this huge activation that's happening in the sky right now, all of a sudden you see these beautiful crystal stones in the middle of the river. They've appeared. And the question you have to ask yourself, are you ready to step on those stones to the next level of who you are?
Yeah, it's like the challenges have always been there and will always been there, but right now the field and the energy that's available is providing us a much easier path. You don't have
Exactly.
to, wade the river to get across. There's a nice path, but again, you have to be the one to make the choice. It's not going to be made for you.
Absolutely. And you have to make that choice. I had a woman in our group in Avalon, she said, well, what if I just don't want to? She's going through a really hard time right now. And I've worked with her on her astrology and stuff. And I said, it's okay. It's a choice. If you're comfortable hanging out over here, just hang out. And that's the thing. And for some people, just being and not doing right now is where they need to be.
Yes. Yes, that is incredibly important. And everybody's on their own path and on their own timeline. So it's no
Yeah.
rush. It's take it as you're ready. Forcing it and pushing yourself when you're not ready is just
It's not going to
makes it
work.
twice as hard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She really brought up a good point. I said, you have all these gold nuggets and you have a path if you want it.
Yeah. When you're ready, it's there.
When you're ready, it's there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's transition this over to Mary Magdalene because I want to jump in and hear what your thoughts are about this story that's been hidden from the masses for so many years about Mary Magdalene, what her part was in connection with Jesus and the story and bringing the truth to the people and just let's go.
All right, it's story time. All right, Mary Magdalene. She's a powerhouse. She is here. We'll start present and we'll move backwards. She is here right now to help the rising of the divine feminine. Truly. Isis kind of gave her a little nudge. And I always, when I start talking about her, I get those truth bumps. So Mary and Yeshua were like, they're all like hanging out in the ethers, like, we're good, we're good. And then, Isis shows up one day and says, yo, Mary, we need your help. We really need your story to be brought back to life, and so that we can empower the women on this planet and empower the men to find the divine feminine within themselves. And she's like, oh, okay. So she's here with us, and it's really, really powerful. She sent me on a wild goose chase for the Lionsgate, right? That was an interesting Lionsgate because there's so much trying to debunk the Lionsgate. You can't debunk a portal. You can't debunk frequency. Anyways, and she's like, you need to find this because it needs to be part of your activation. Another part of me is I do activations for people. I create these activations so that people really can dive deep. So I was doing this big Lionsgate activation, and she had me looking at books and this and that because she wanted me to find the perfect example of the Ida and Pingali, which are the two serpents, the Kundalini rising, right? Mary Magdalene was trained, she was back with Isis, in another lifetime way back we're going way back. We have to bring Isis into the story, because Isis came to this planet and really elevated the frequencies on this planet with Mother Earth. She was the oracle for Mother Earth. Talk about ultimate divine feminine, right? And she also taught the tantric codes of sexuality. We'll get into why it got distorted, but it's a perfect union. You're a Mira, but you're also sovereign, right? It's not the entanglement, it's not the distortion, it's not, it's divine. It's it's divine union, right? And that's what Mary Magdalene and Yeshua had. They had the divine union. When she was little, in the lifetime of Mary Magdalene, she already came in knowing. She didn't forget. She knew who she was. So she started training in Isis temple at a very young age. And people were like, I love when people are like, there's no Isis temples. I'm like, there's still Isis temples today. The women know how to obscure to keep the work going, right? Because the womb is so powerful. I call it the heart womb, right? So Isis and her teachings have been passed on for generations,
You
eons.
explain, even somebody may not have heard about ISIS.
So Isis came in, um, you can't count history because she came before written history, okay? And she came in and she was very, very powerful. And her purpose here was um, to raise the frequency of Earth. This is in a very magical time period. This is when Avalon was thriving. This is before the end of Atlantis, when it got all mad and crazy and power hungry, right? Um, and so Egypt was this place. Now the pyramids were already there. They had been built by the Galactics, and she was part of that team, right? And her job, which she loved, was the earth, and she was here to heal the earth, right? And so you see her with wings, right, in the mythology of ancient Egypt. And yes, guess what? She did have wings. She was able to get to that point, and that is her true nature. She does, like angel wings. She truly has that. I mean, this story is one unto itself, which I still have to present on Instagram. But anyways, so Isis worked with Hathor. Okay, so we have to go a little further back. Hathor was the scientist. Amazing. So Hathor is I think the hippopotamus goddess, right? So the loving earth goddess of Egypt mythology. However, Hathor was a real true scientist from Sirius, and she talks about electrons. When we shift our electrons, we can do anything that we want, right? And so Mary Magdalene learned that from Hathor. So it's like, let's take a cat, right? When we pet a cat, they give us electrons, and we give them electrons through our love. So it's an interchange of electrons constantly. It's very, very deep science. It's already in all the quantum fields. So Isis used this. She was the oracle. She taught the tantric codes, right? She taught this how to be sacred in divine union between a male and female. Can you do it alone? Yes, you absolutely can if you're not interested in partnership, right? There are ways to do that. It's in the ancient Tibetans. I've studied Tibetan Buddhism for many years. It's in the Vedas. This is not some hidden knowledge. It's there. And so she gave that to the people, and it was very, very joyous, incredibly joyous. So there was many girls in her temples, and she didn't just wasn't just in Egypt, right? She also went to Avalon. She traveled, and they did the grid lines. They worked on the ley lines, clearing, bringing the earth back into this massive, beautiful, energetic field. Um, she did have a husband, Osiris, right? And she did resurrect him. And so she has the resurrection codes within her. Anyone can resurrect themselves. Think about that, right? We're not talking physical deaths anymore. We're talking about, like, really resurrecting who you are. You have those codes you're coded in your DNA. Those persecution wounds that are in you from all these other lifetimes can be totally healed. And Isis gave that knowledge to us and gave it to Mary in the temples. So Isis was here, and she knew what was coming. She read it in the stars, truly. And Hathor, the Dendera temple has astrology on the ceiling still to this day in Egypt, right? It has the cosmos. It's pretty cool. Isis knew what was coming because the masculine was rising and the distortion was happening. And so it was at some point, it was time for her to really leave because the frequency was getting too low, right? Too dense. Let's just say dense. It was getting denser and the distortion was moving in. So she became a myth, just like Hathor became a myth, just like Zeus is a myth, just like Thor is a myth, right? All the mythology. And Avalon really went into the mist and went into different dimensions because that, Atlantis got really bad and the power hungry people destroyed a good portion of the earth because of it, right? So that's Isis. And Isis taught Mary in those temples back in that day.
Okay.
And then, so when Mary was born, during the time of Yeshua or Jesus, however you like to say it, he's just a very powerful being. And he's still, the Christ light is very powerful on this planet. He's a magnificent ascended master. So she came in, and from a very young age, luckily she had parents that she was born to purposely that were part of this energy. So she was trained that whole lifetime. And guess who was an Isis priestess? Mother Mary. Okay. So Mother Mary was actually training Mary Magdalene in the Isis temples, right? And really worked with her and they knew what was coming. And so when Jesus at the I forget the wedding, the person's name, but it's in the gospels, right? Where he turned water because they ran out of wine and he turned
Mhm.
the water into wine. This is truth, guys. This is absolute truth. It's true. He was able to do that, just like yogis in India do that all the time and pull food out of the ethers. It's a fact. The other gospel of him, all these people that came to see him and they had to travel home. So he took and he created just endless fish and endless bread. So Mary met Yeshua, right? And they met through Mother Mary. And they instantly knew each other and they connected psychically, right? And they loved each other already. And it was a divine union. And Mary was as powerful as Yeshua. And that probably disturbs quite a few people, right? Because she's part of the divine feminine. But they did have a divine union and they did travel together. They did. They traveled together and people went to Mary for healing as much as they went to Yeshua for healing and they work together. She has her own gospel and she's the apostle of all apostles. And finally, Mary knew what was going to happen to her too. She knew that the church was gaining power, 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 right? And that the masculine was not going to handle a woman that had power. And under the protection of Jesus, she was able to shine when Jesus decided to make the sacrifice with his life. This was the hardest thing that ever happened because Mary was supposed to be doing the whole divine feminine with Yeshua, and then she fell in love. And Yeshua fell in love with Mary. And they were in a divine union. And yes, they did have a daughter. That's the later story. Um, so she saw that the church was going to smear her. She knew all this was coming. So they did after, and she and Mother Mary were there after his death. And Jesus absolutely came and did visit her. And then it happened more and more and more. So people say Mother Mary and the Immaculate Conception. Well, they couldn't get rid of Mother Mary and they couldn't brand her because she was Yeshua's mother, right? And so they had to elevate her and kind of make her look meek and kind of just be like, she just was the mother and she was a really high, powerful priestess and knew everything that was coming too. But they could brand Mary Magdalene because she was just a follower. She was a whore.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's what we're talking about with the density of the masculinity, right? The divine feminine just got buried and burned and persecuted, right? Then we have witch trials and all the other ways they like to persecute women all across the world. And so Mary is amazing, right? And she did escape with Mother Mary, and she was pregnant at the time. And they did escape to France. And yes, that cave in Lourdes is still there. And Mother Mary will appear if your heart is really true. And then, but Mary Magdalene, she went further. She went up to Glastonbury and she had her baby there. And in Glastonbury, that's why they do such a big feast day. So finally, at a certain point in the church, people were really rebelling against Mary not being acknowledged for who she was, right? And so the church conceded and gave her a feast day, July 22nd. So they do a huge festival up in Glastonbury for her. But that's why her ley line is there, because she put so much energy into that part of the UK, right? And she did, and the story goes on, but I can tell it another time. Anyways, it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I guess that's why that's such a powerhouse of energy for, the witches back during that time period too. I'm sure that's all connected with her.
It's absolutely all connected. It's all connected because the masculine, the man that was really in charge of all those witch burnings, was truly just absolutely detested the divine feminine. And so created this whole thing through
Yeah.
ego and density.
I'm sure
Yeah.
he had a great relationship with his mother.
Yeah, we should work on his traumas a little bit. Maybe that would
Yeah,
help. We'll change
and
we'll
some
change the timelines, or
he
all the
needs some
stories will
shadow
shift.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it all works out in all these different timelines all happening, you know, at the same time and different timelines in our minds, but all at the same time to get us to all the things that are happening now. So in connection with all that with Mary Magdalene and Glastonbury and the divine feminine, like what would you suggest to women that are out there today that are on their healing journey and to use the story and this truth of Mary Magdalene and even Mother Mary and
Mhm.
realizing what our gifts are and opening back up that throat chakra and being able to share who we really are at our cores and our divine feminine and the power of creation that we all have in us, but especially as women. What would you guide women out there listening today? And what's maybe the first step to just get back into that space of who you really are?
First step is mirror work. I sorry, from the East Coast, mirror work. Really looking in the mirror, and I'm not kidding, okay? Because I had this teaching from Kala Rinpoche, uh, ancient times, really. And you have to ask yourself who you love. Who do you love, right? The story is I had a teacher in my meditation stage when I was a young child. Didn't know who he was. He just taught me. Turns out later he was a really ancient, unbelievable master, Kala Rinpoche. And so once I found out who he had been, I'm like, hey, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell me your name? And he said, "Yeah, because you never asked." And I'm like, oh, good point. Good point. And so then in this deep meditation one night, this other Lama Dorje, brought me to Kala Rinpoche, and he said he wants to see you. And he came to me, and from his robes, he held out a mirror to me, and I totally deflected. And he said, "Who do you love?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And I got it, but I was young. I was like 21, and I've had a hard time loving myself. And I said, "Okay, this is your first lesson. When you get this first lesson, you can move on to your second lesson." So that's why I say to all of you, really, it's not a joke. Just like love your wrinkles, love your gray hair, love everything about you because you are perfect. And when you do that, then you can start really vibrating your throat chakra, your heart chakra comes online, and you start using your voice So it really does start with that choice to love yourself and find people, find your tribe, find especially women that will uplift you. Get away from people that they keep putting you down. That's not going to work for you. We have to break out of those cycles, right, Amanda? I mean, you
Yeah.
you understand it. It's like this is just, you need to really find people that will support you in this. There's groups online. We have one, Avalon. We just have it's so powerful, in all of this work that we do, loving ourselves first start.
Yeah, I love that so much. And you're exactly right. And there's so many different communities out there. And whichever one is guiding someone in that direction, take this as your sign. If you need a sign, here it is. Join that group that's been calling your name, because I 100% agree that having that support around you and people who genuinely want the best for you and want to see all of us rise together. We were taught during so many of those witch trials and all that, women were pitted against each other, and then this continued femininity that has been rising in our culture for so long, and this, boss babe, and woman boss, this femininity, which has its own power, but can be taken to our detriment whenever we start fighting against each other. We're stronger together. So I
Yeah,
love that. I love that
yeah.
so much, mirror work and loving yourself. So thank you so much for coming on to talk to us today. I'll definitely put your Instagram and website in the show notes. And you guys go out and check out Asia and all of the tools that are available to you today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amanda. This has been so much fun. And thank you, everyone listening to this. I hope you found inspiration and big hugs and love. And as we always end our conversations in Avalon, mwah.
Mm. What a powerful conversation. Asia reminded us that the stories we have been told about ourselves and about our history can sometimes hide the truth of our real power. Through astrology, the Quantum Soul Codex, and her connection to ancient wisdom, she showed us how we can clear distortions, heal wounds, and return to our original light. I especially love the reminder that Mary Magdalene's story is our story, the rising of the divine feminine, the call to remember our gifts, and the courage to speak our truth. So if you've been feeling stuck or unsure of your next step, or you keep running into the same old patterns, let this episode be a reminder that you are not broken. You are simply ready for a new story. And it starts with choosing love over fear and coming back to your heart. Book a free 30-minute one-on-one session with me, and we will explore what the next steps are for you. The link is in the show notes below.